I am here to talk to you about 7 secrets of highly successful developers. First of all, a little bit about myself. My name is Maida. I am the Vice President of Developer Marketing at Narwhal. I'm also a Google developer expert in security and identity and web technologies. I'm a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional in Developer Technologies. And I'm also the former head of developer relations at Auth0, now an Auth0 ambassador. Now, we're developers, so I want to talk a little bit about what our ecosystem is like. What kind of world do we live in as devs? Well, first of all, tech is just an incredibly fast-paced industry. Things change all the time. We're always having to learn about new tools, new libraries, new frameworks, new trends, new best practices. All kinds of things come up all the time. And because of this, we're constantly bombarded by information. There's this pressure to feel like we should be constantly learning new things. So in this ecosystem, as developers in technology, what challenges are we facing on our journey to become truly successful in our careers and in our lives? Well, one of the challenges that comes to mind often for me especially is the sensation of feeling left behind. When things move so fast, I can often feel like I'm not learning enough, quickly enough. And this ends up manifesting in a phenomenon that's known as keeping up with the Joneses. But I want to take a moment to talk a little bit about where this phrase even came from. So Keeping Up with the Joneses was actually a comic by Arthur Pop Moment. It ran from 1913 to 1940, so it had a good long run. And it was about a social climbing family, Aloysius and Clarice McGinnis. And Aloysius and Clarice were always comparing themselves to the Joneses. The Joneses generally were depicted off-screen, they weren't shown, but we know about their antics through Aloysius and Clarice's reactions to the things that the Joneses are doing. For example, take this panel of this comic, and sort of keep in mind that 1913 to 1940, it's a little dated by today's standards, but the underlying concept still applies. So in this panel, Clarice is saying, "Look at Mrs. Jones. She goes to matinees, she entertains, she wears wonderful clothes, she gets something out of life." And this concept of feeling like we need to keep up with the people who are around us, or the technologies that are around us, can really end up resonating with us and our situation that we face every day when we work in tech. Although, maybe now, our situation might be presented more like this. Maybe in tech, Clarice might be saying, "Look at Mrs. Jones. She keynotes conferences. She writes a blog post every week. She was promoted to principal architect. She gets something out of life." And every day, as part of our work and our existence as denizens of the internet, we're inundated with social media, with the connected web, with everything that other people in our industry are doing and saying and accomplishing. As a result, keeping up with the Joneses can end up making us feel this pressure to learn everything, and feeling this can end up leading to fear of missing out, or more affectionately known as FOMO, because new technologies pop up incredibly quickly. The developer ecosystem is honestly quite overwhelming. There's always new frameworks to learn, new libraries, new testing strategies and techniques. Even entire tech stacks appear once in a while. And we can end up being very afraid that if we don't learn everything, or if we even just don't learn something that happens to be really important, maybe we'll fall behind, or we'll miss something that's crucial in our success for our career and our growth. Finally, number 3, developers have really demanding jobs. This can often lead to things like tremendously long hours. It can lead to having very few opportunities to sort of give our brains a little bit of a break on the day-to-day basis. And ultimately, demanding jobs can lead to burnout. Now, burnout is characterized by several things. One of those things is a lack of motivation. It can also have mental, emotional, and physical symptoms in the form of exhaustion, mental, emotional, and physical exhaustion. And things like this can lead to more serious matters such as depression, things like anxiety, things like feeling worthless or dreading getting up just to go to work every day. it can also result in losing passion or enthusiasm for things that would normally be very exciting to you. So now we've talked about the things that sort of make our lives more challenging, the problems that can arise when we're trying to become successful in our careers in tech. But how do we meet these challenges head on? How do we prevent them? How do we overcome them once we are sort of face to face with them? So that leads us to the topic of the rest of this talk, which is going to be 7 tips to help you hopefully achieve a balance between happiness, between fulfillment, and also adding in that little bit of career acceleration that will make you successful. But there's an important thing here, and that is, if we're going to try to be highly successful developers, what does highly successful even mean? I want to define this because there are several facets to this. First of all, personal fulfillment, satisfaction, feeling good about what you're doing. To me, I could make a ton of money, I could get a bunch of promotions, but if I don't feel good about that, then I don't consider myself successful. And I think it's very important. Personal happiness is just so important in our daily lives in order to be happy and healthy and feel like we're going somewhere in our life. Also, upward trending career trajectory. So this is about the opportunity to progress our career, the opportunity to create and achieve goals, and to end up feeling like you're going somewhere. If we don't have that, if we don't have that sort of upward trend that we can look forward to, then I don't really think that qualifies as being successful either. And then also, upward trending reward trajectory. When it all comes down to it, we work for money, we work for rewards. If the paycheck stopped coming, I probably wouldn't go to work anymore. It's just a simple fact that we want to make sure that we are compensated for the hard work and the effort that we put into the things we do. So what are these 7 secrets? Let's get right to it. Now, I talked about the temptation to compare yourself to people who surround you in your daily life. But really, when it comes down to it, you should try to focus on comparing yourself to one person. And that one person is the person that you were yesterday, or last week, or even a year ago. And I want to give you a little bit of a hypothetical example of doing this, of how this can be done in practice. Let's say that you have a friend, and your friend keeps talking about something that you don't know yet. Maybe they're talking about Svelte, for example. They're saying, Svelte is the path forward for reactive JavaScript. They keep telling you, oh, you should really learn it. It's very important. It's so cool. You'll really like it. You should definitely be looking into this. And for your part, it sounds interesting. But the cognitive burden of learning something new right now, not to mention the hours of time and effort it would take, is just very, very high. In fact, maybe you just learned a new state management library this week. You finally got to a point where you feel like you're competent in it. Still, Svelte does sound really cool, so you might be tempted to maybe spend some late nights looking into it, take some time after work to spend some time learning it, but I would encourage you to step back at this point. You just learned a new library, the state management library, right? And that is something that you didn't know a month ago. So it's very important to also take the time to celebrate the progress that you've made. You want to acknowledge the things that you've done and the things that you've achieved on your own time with you as the benchmark. You're the benchmark that matters. So if you take the time to do something like record your accomplishments, write down your successes, write down your achievements as they happen, and then you go back in a month, or 3 months, or 6 months, and take a look at that list, review what you've accomplished, and I promise you will impress yourself. Even if you think, I'm always running to catch up, it's never ending, there's always more things to learn, go back and look at the things that you've accomplished, and it will be something to be proud of, I promise. Number 2, set personal goals. And I like to do this about once every 3 months or so. I find that that's a nice amount of time for me to sort of wrap my head around something and then work towards accomplishing it. And when setting goals, remember a few things. Number 1 about setting goals is the purpose of these goals is not to make yourself feel pressure. It's not to make yourself stressed out. You want to set goals that you are passionate about and excited to do, but that aren't going to make you feel really stressed and like, oh my gosh, I really need to learn this or I'm not going to be able to accomplish anything. Appeal to your passions when you're setting goals. Choose goals that you feel strongly about, that you have confidence that you can have enough interest to follow through with those goals. And also, goals should be realistically achievable. We don't want to be having pie in the sky sort of pipe dream goals that just aren't realistic, aren't something that we can actually accomplish. And I know personally, I'm a big fan of checklists, and every once in a while I will put things on the checklist that maybe I've actually already done, just for the pure sort of cathartic joy of crossing those things off. So overall, the point here really is pick things that are going to help you to accomplish things that you can be proud of, but not that are going to kind of put you out or take up too much of your time so that you feel stressed about it. Here are some examples of good 3-month goals. You could maybe apply for an experts program. You could contribute to a community that you care about. Maybe help out in a forum or answer some questions or submit a PR. You could write a blog post. You could speak at a meetup. And these days it doesn't even have to be a local meetup because of COVID. A lot of events have gone remote. You could speak at a meetup anywhere in the world. You could ask someone that you admire for career advice. Or you could discuss your own career growth with your manager. And you're going to want to revisit the goals every few months. Like I said, about every 3 months is a pretty good timeline for goals. Check in with yourself. If you didn't meet your goals, think about maybe were they unrealistic? Was the timing just not perfect for this particular goal? You can create new goals at that time. You can carry over unfinished goals. But if the same goal remains unfulfilled, then maybe consider, can it be broken into smaller, more accomplishable parts? And the more you do this goal-setting type of activity, the more comfortable you're going to be with it, the more familiar and the easier it'll get. Number 3, share your wins. Now don't be shy about this. Sharing wins with the right audience at the right time has gotten many extraordinarily successful people to the point that they are today. And arguably the most important way to share your wins is with your boss. Now managers, by their own sort of job description, they want to do right by their team members. And a good boss is going to try their very best to note all of your successes and to reward them. Of course, while trying not to micromanage you at the same time. But something you have to keep in mind is that so much happens outside the line of sight of your manager. For example, maybe you debugged a particularly challenging issue. Maybe you helped out your coworker with some code they were struggling with. Maybe you programmed a particularly challenging feature, something that you had a lot of trouble with, but you were able to accomplish in the end. Maybe you shipped a patch, or somebody on your team gave you praise for a great presentation that you did at a lunch and learn. Now, your boss might know some of these things, but they're not going to sort of omnipotently know all of these things automatically, unless you share some of these wins with them. And the result of sharing wins leads to greater recognition. And recognition from your boss can lead to particularly excellent things like promotion, maybe performance compensation increases, maybe bonuses, maybe they'll recommend you for a particularly exciting or challenging project that you've been interested in, and a lot more things as well. Now, you can also share wins publicly on professional networks. You can do this in several ways. You can tweet about it. You can write blog posts. You can talk about lessons that you've learned from the successes that you've had and the challenges that you've overcome. And sharing wins publicly on the surface might sound like shameless self-promotion, but when it's done well, when it's done tastefully in a way that supports and benefits other people, it will get you noticed. The public space is watched by people of influence, and people of influence can potentially support you. They can sponsor your career. They can promote the work that you've done and the activities that you've engaged in. And when people respond, when they engage with you and say, oh, congratulations on accomplishing this, or maybe somebody says, I have questions about how you did this, engage, reply to these people, make conversations, forge connections. Because cultivating and fostering relationships is especially important to your career, But even more so right now, sort of during this COVID era where a lot of us are pretty isolated, we have a hard time connecting with people in person because we don't have sort of events or meetups or workshops in person to go to and things like that. So our online connections that we create now are especially important. Now, almost about a year ago, roughly a year ago actually, I saw this tweet from Kelly Vaughn and I really liked this one. And it says, "I don't want to come off as bragging, but no, stop. Remove that. Please share your accomplishments. You're allowed to be publicly proud of what you've achieved. You earned it. And there's nothing wrong with being proud of our successes. We deserve validation for the blood, the sweat, the tears, and the tremendous hard work that we put into the things that we do." Number 4, be kind. And it sounds so incredibly simple to say, well, just be kind, just be nice to people. But kindness goes a very long way. And I want to talk a little bit about how and why this works. So the tenets of kindness, the basic tenets, are very straightforward, really. We have empathy. Empathy for people who might be facing challenges. You never know what other people are going through. I'm sure that everybody who's listening to this has their own personal challenges. Compassion. Compassion even when you disagree with someone, or maybe especially when you disagree. Patience and understanding for other people's points of view, and this is also very important when you disagree with someone. Being open to hearing other people's opinions, being open to sharing yours and having a back and forth instead of shutting people out. It's also very important. Because at the core, everyone is fighting their own battles. And being kind can just make a huge difference in the larger ecosystem of human beings in the world. Tech notwithstanding, everybody. And also, people notice kindness, and people repay kindness. If you're a pleasant person to engage with, then people are going to enjoy and look forward to interacting with you. This is true both at work, as well as in public spaces, and sort of by public spaces I mean online, at events, in the tech community, on GitHub, on Stack Overflow, or what have you. Also, the results of being kind are that kindness makes you approachable. It makes you approachable to people who might be looking to build a connection with you. It makes you appealing to people that maybe you're trying to build a connection with, you're trying to network with. It also makes you memorable. If you are a pleasant person to interact with, then you're more likely to be reached out to in the future by both people you're trying to mentor and maybe people seeking mentorship. Number 5 is get uncomfortable. So by the very sort of core definition of discomfort or being uncomfortable, nobody enjoys being uncomfortable. But the fact is, a lot of us grow the most when we venture outside of our comfort zone. We just have more to gain when we try things that are going to stretch us a little bit. So try something new. This might be something like public speaking. You could maybe speak at a meetup or a conference. You can even do this from the comfort of your own home these days, which makes it more approachable. You could build something with a technology or a language or a framework that you've never used before. You could maybe even take on a job that you've never done before. And I want to talk more about this last one, because it's been especially pertinent to me in my career and has greatly affected other people that I know and have talked to over the years in tech. So if you apply for a job you're fully qualified for, or maybe you're overqualified for, ask yourself this: do you have room to grow in this position? Is it going to be an interesting challenge? Is it going to further your career? Some jobs, if you're overqualified for them or perfectly qualified, they might end up being a temporary change of pace, but then not more. In another 6 months to a year, maybe you'll be bored again and then be looking for something else. I encourage people to try jobs that might challenge you. Try applying for jobs you haven't done before. And if the title of the job that you're applying for is the same as your current, maybe look for an expansion of responsibilities in the job description. And you can also go in different directions. For example, I am classically trained as a biologist, and then I made the transition into tech because I was working as freelance in tech, and then I sort of climbed the engineering ladder and got up to engineering manager. And then at that point, I actually got kind of burnt out, and I left engineering management, and I went into a technical content writing role. teaching people, writing tutorials to teach people how to do things in tech. And I loved that. It then ultimately led me into developer relations, and that took me on to becoming a director for DevRel roles. And then that step brought me to where I am now, which is an executive in developer marketing. So try things that are outside of your comfort zone, but there's an important sort of caveat to this, and that's you shouldn't do it at the cost of your well-being. If something's going to cause you undue stress by going so far out of your comfort zone that it freaks you out, then you should probably refrain. And you know yourself best. But also keep in mind that getting a little bit uncomfortable can bring you tremendous fulfillment. It can accelerate your career, advance your career, and also give you a sense of great personal success to try new things and then succeed at them. And you can be initially uncomfortable, but just know that there are significant rewards that can come from doing things like this. But there's always a balance, and you need to explore that balance for yourself. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you, well, here's where your lines are, here's the limit to what you'll be able to feel good about doing but still be uncomfortable, and here's, the line where you're not going to be able to sleep at night anymore. So find that balance and explore it for yourself. Number 6 is reach out. Now, this is number 6 for a reason. Once you've implemented the other strategies, then you can reach out to people that you admire. You can reach out to ask for advice, for mentorship. You can talk about career sponsorship. But please don't do this prematurely, because if you reach out but you haven't actually invested your own time and effort in your personal growth, then reaching out can backfire a little bit. People can sort of perceive you as coming to them to get all of the answers without having put in any of the work yourself. So do this at number 6 after you've done the other things. There's a few ways that you can reach out to people. You can reach out to your extended network. And when you're connecting with someone that you don't have a previous relationship with, it's good to be specific in the manner in which you extend that outreach. So some advice might be pick one specific topic to ask advice on. Maybe try to ask about something sort of unique, maybe something that isn't what everyone else who reaches out to this person might ask about. And then also, it's important to be understanding, especially if you're reaching out to someone who is sort of very well known in sort of the tech sphere. Don't take it personally if they don't respond or if they decline because they're too busy. Many popular community influencers get dozens of these types of requests and messages per day, and they're not all particularly well formulated either. So make sure that you stand out when you ask to forge a relationship with somebody who maybe gets a lot of these types of outreach. You can also reach out to your closer network. So when you're connecting with someone that you work with, or maybe somebody in the community who's particularly known for their willingness to mentor other people, you're going to want to do things like establish intent, share what kind of connection you're hoping to make. You might want to talk about what this person has done that you admire. What is it that you're looking to learn from them that you can see that they've already excelled at? And then share what you've done so far to grow yourself, because being someone who has taken the time and effort to put in some work and explore what it is that can be done to take your own self to the next step is very important when you're asking for help from other people. You can also share what you think your next steps are. Maybe you've set your goals and you have shared your wins publicly and you've talked to your boss, and now the next step is to find someone who's an expert in a certain area and ask for their advice, and that's what you're doing. And also start small. So you could just quickly ask for, maybe can we have, a 20-minute video call to talk about this particular thing, or sort of when the COVID era is over, you can invite someone out for a chat over coffee. So directly reaching out to people to forge connections is extremely valuable. Connections are just so valuable in our daily lives. And they're harder to make during COVID, so they become even more important. Number 7, celebrate milestones. And this is not the same as sharing wins. Celebrating milestones is for you. It's for you personally. It's not for the benefit of somebody else. When you achieve something, you should really stop and give yourself credit for it. Feel good, take that opportunity to celebrate, and this can be for big events, or it can be for smaller milestones. When you set those 3-month goals and you achieve a personal goal or you make some substantial progress on it, then stop and celebrate that. Because the thing is, even if you do all of these other things, you're never going to feel fulfilled if you don't take the opportunity to recognize and reward yourself for your own hard work and the accomplishments that you've been making. And finally, I have a couple of more things that are essentially bonus, but that doesn't make them less important. The first thing in this category is invest in self-care. This is really important. You have to take care of yourself. I really like this comic infographic from Liz and Molly. They have some really great ones overall, so I highly recommend checking all of them out. But this one says, what I thought would make me productive. And that's 100% hard work. And then it says, what actually does. And it's a good chunk of hard work, but it's also a decent chunk of time off. It's exercise, it's healthy eating, it's sleep. It's all of the other things that make a well-rounded, healthy human being. Not just eat, sleep, breathe, work, and code. Also, do what you love. I like to encourage people to cultivate hobbies that are not related to coding and work. I know it can be sort of a toxic atmosphere that we run into sometimes in tech, where people are essentially saying, oh, I code in all of my spare time, I do all of these personal projects, or jobs that say, do you eat, sleep, live, and breathe code? Then you should come to work for us and be a rock star. That's not healthy. It's not well-rounded. You should have hobbies that exist outside of coding and work. Of course, hobbies are no good if you don't make time to actually engage in them. So make sure you are reserving time to engage with your hobbies, to do the things that aren't related to the work that you do 9 to 5. Also, spend time with loved ones. The people who surround you in your daily life, who are your family, your friends, your pets, these people are incredibly important, and their support and their love for you is going to make you feel better. It's going to make you successful to spend time with them, with the people that you care about and care about you. So I really hope that these tips are useful for you in advancing your goals, in advancing and accelerating your career, but also for gaining a sense of accomplishment and feelings of fulfillment from the things that you do. Now, the slides for this talk are available here. I also have my Twitter here. I'm happy to talk to anyone if anyone has questions about anything that is in the presentation or just wants to chat with me. I'm more than happy to talk to you. And thank you very much for your time today.